Let me tell you something strange about silence in the digital age. We live in a world where almost everything is shared. Birthdays, coffee cups, sunsets, tears, laughter, even pain dressed up with filters. Yet some people stay completely invisible. They scroll quietly, observe deeply, but rarely, if ever, post. You might even know someone like that. Maybe you are someone like that. And here's the question that always lingers. Why? Why would someone choose to stay unseen when the whole world seems to be shouting for attention? It's easy to assume they are simply shy or introverted. But that's not the full picture. Beneath the surface, there's an entire psychology at play. One that speaks volumes about human nature, self-perception, and a quiet rebellion against a culture obsessed with visibility. See, for some people, silence is not emptiness, it's control. It's the power to choose what the world doesn't get to know. Because whether we admit it or not, social media has reshaped how we define ourselves. It rewards display. It praises noise. And yet, those who stay in the shadows are often the ones who see everything most clearly. They watch without needing to interrupt. They think before reacting. They analyze before judging. Psychologists have found something fascinating. People who refrain from posting often score higher on traits like self-restraint, introspection, and emotional independence. They are less influenced by social comparison, by external validation. In other words, they aren't trying to prove who they are. They're trying to understand it, and in a world drowning in performances, that's rare. Because let's be honest, most of what we post is not just communication. It's identity crafting. It's an unconscious audition for belonging. Every caption, every photo says, "This is who I am. Do you approve?" But when you stop posting, something shifts. You detach your worth from digital applause. You stop thinking in captions. You start experiencing moments for yourself again instead of for a lens. And that's the secret. They crave authenticity in a space where everything feels staged. It's not about being anti-technology. It's about refusing to reduce your life into highlights. Because when you've seen how easy it is to manipulate perception, you start valuing what can't be posted. Silence, depth, imperfection, truth. For some, the decision comes after a kind of emotional burnout. Maybe they once shared everything, until one day it stopped feeling real. They realized every time they shared something beautiful, they felt an invisible pressure to keep outdoing it. They weren't living anymore, they were performing. So they quit quietly. No announcement. Just a slow disappearance from the feed. But here's what's misunderstood. Not posting doesn't mean not feeling. It often means they care too much about presence, about meaning, about protecting what's sacred. There's a concept, psychological ownership. The feeling that something belongs deeply to you, a thought, a memory, an experience. And when you post it, that sense of ownership fades. The moment becomes shared property, open to judgment. So they guard it. They keep their moments untouchable, private, pure. And maybe that's not withdrawal. Maybe it's a quiet kind of freedom. Because think about it. When was the last time you did something meaningful and didn't feel the urge to share it? That reflex, that need to display, is not natural. It's conditioned. It's dopamine loops training our brains to equate validation with value. And when someone steps outside that system, it can feel like rebellion. But it's also healing. They start rediscovering the simplicity of doing things for themselves again. Cooking without photographing it. travelling without tagging it, feeling without explaining it. In that space, something awakens. A self-awareness that doesn't need an audience. But not everyone is driven by peace. Some are driven by fear, the fear of judgment, rejection. Social media has amplified self-presentational pressure, the constant awareness that you're being watched, and for many, that's exhausting. They retreat not because they don't want to connect, but because the cost of visibility feels too high. They want to be seen, but only truly, not superficially. And ironically, sometimes the quietest people online have the loudest thoughts in their minds. They're not absent, they're overflowing. They just choose stillness instead of spectacle. There's a deep philosophical undertone to that silence. In a world that constantly says, "Look at me," choosing invisibility becomes a form of self-definition. It's saying, "I exist beyond your perception." They understand something most don't. Not everything you experience is meant to be witnessed. Sometimes the most profound things, growth, grief, transformation, happen quietly, unseen, unposted. And when you've lived through enough of those private transformations, you start realizing being unseen is not the same as being insignificant. It's actually where identity is formed, not performed. This is where the paradox lies. Social media was designed to connect us, yet it often leaves people feeling more isolated than ever. When you don't post, you stop chasing digital closeness and start rebuilding real ones. You notice who checks in on you without the need for updates. That kind of connection, raw, unbroadcasted, feels heavier, warmer, more real. They build relationships that don't need proof. They find comfort in the unshared moment. They let life unfold without turning it into content. Part of this is also about identity security, knowing who you are even when nobody's watching. When you're comfortable in your own company, you don't need an audience. That's not arrogance, it's peace. And ironically, the same people who don't post often have the most interesting stories to tell, but they save them for when you're sitting across the table, not across the screen. Because real connection isn't measured in comments or likes. It's in shared silence, in eyes meeting, in laughter that doesn't need witnesses. These are the people who carry worlds within them, who process deeply, observe constantly, and understand quietly. They don't need the world to applaud their existence, they just need to live it. And maybe, just maybe, in a world so desperate to be seen, their silence isn't a flaw. It's a mirror, a reminder that not everything meaningful has to be shared. That sometimes, the most human thing you can do is to keep something entirely for yourself.